Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So for today's case, we have a child actor who fell off the rails and ended up going on a deadly killing spree. And this child actor was somebody called Ryan Grantham. He featured in some really popular TV programs such as Riverdale on Netflix and Supernatural.
Yeah, you're right. He will get justice. I promise you.
Will you stop? He didn't do it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
He was also in some pretty big movies like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. He even played the lead role in some other movies.
Hi, I'm Ryan Grantham, and I'm playing the role of Redwood.
However, when Ryan got to his 20s, his acting career just kind of fell off. He had no idea how to cope with not getting roles anymore. And in Ryan's case, he became incredibly angry. And this manifested into Ryan wanting to commit one of the most deadly killing sprees that Canada has ever seen. So this case is a bit of a roller coaster. It's kind of crazy. And that is what we are going to talk about today. So let's jump in. And I just want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, and that is HelloFresh. Now, you guys know how much I love HelloFresh. I have been using them for the longest time now, and I truly don't know what I would do without HelloFresh in my life. Every week I get my HelloFresh box delivered, and it is full of fresh ingredients for all of my meals to cook for the week. And when it comes to cooking the meals, all you have to do is pull out your recipe card, pull out your little brown bag from the cupboard, get all of your fresh ingredients from the fridge, and get cooking. And the recipe cards make it so easy to cook the meals. And then when it comes to eating the meals, they are so delicious. HelloFresh hits it every time. They have never let me down. Recently, I just cooked the halloumi and spring onion fritter burgers, which is something that I would never ever cook myself, which is another thing that I love about HelloFresh, is that it pushes me out of my comfort zone and makes me use like ingredients and do techniques that I wouldn't normally use. But anyway, these burgers were so good. I'm a sucker for anything with halloumi in any way, but they tasted so good. I cannot wait to have them again. Me and Ashley were actually pleasantly surprised about how easy they were to cook. We even got a chance to sit down and take a break in the middle of cooking, which never happens. And just to top everything off, HelloFresh has become even better than it was before. They have doubled the size of their menus to 100 plus recipes every single week. They are also offering bigger portions, more healthy options, as well as offering ready-made meals that you can get directly inside your HelloFresh box every week. And these ready-made meals, they only take 3 minutes to heat up, so they are perfect for the nights where you just don't have any time. So take advantage of the new HelloFresh by using my code DanielleKirstyFM at hellofresh.com for 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. 1 free meal per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New and returning subscribers only, and varies by plan. So sign up today by clicking on the link in my description box and use the code DanielleKirstyFM. And using that link and my code really does help out this channel because it lets HelloFresh know that you came from this video. So thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, but thank you to every single one of you watching right now, because truly without all of you guys, I wouldn't get opportunities like this. And now let's jump into today's case. Ryan Grantham was born on the 30th of November 1998, making him a Sagittarius. And he grew up in the town of Squamish in Canada, which is just outside of Vancouver, and that is where the rest of today's case takes place. And growing up, Ryan lived with his mom, Barbara, and his sister, Lisa. His dad walked out on the family just after Ryan was born. And going forward, Ryan would barely even have a relationship with his dad, which definitely had a significant impact on his life. It is said that Ryan just never felt settled through his childhood. It caused him to have abandonment issues. And the fact that his dad literally just abandoned him, it made Ryan feel inadequate, not wanted. And then this led to a whole host of other issues for Ryan. So Ryan from an early age really is struggling mentally. He suffered psychological stress. He suffered a lot with anxiety, social anxiety. He also suffered with verbal stress, which meant that he developed a speech impediment when he was younger. And this again was all linked back to his bad relationship or lack of relationship with his dad. But then when school came round, things didn't get easier for Ryan there either, because he was severely bullied. And very sadly, it was a lot to do with his speech impediment, which just is really, really sad. Like, sometimes kids really are so mean. But another reason why kids bullied Ryan in school was because of how small he was. He was the smallest kid in his class in his year, and this would actually be a thing for the rest of Ryan's life. He never grew beyond the height of 5'2", even as an adult. And then because of all of this bullying that he was facing, this made him become extremely socially anxious. He felt ostracized from society. He just felt different. He felt like he didn't belong. And he became incredibly attached to his mom. He would never leave his mom's side. And tragically, because of his mental health, it got so bad that Ryan, at just the age of 11 or 12, he started thinking about suicide, which breaks my heart that anyone thinks about suicide. But to have a child that is only 11 or 12 experiencing suicidal ideation is just heartbreaking beyond belief. That should not happen. However, throughout all of this, throughout all of his struggles, there was one person that was there for him constantly, by his side, his biggest supporter, and that was his mom, Barbara. So Barbara, she had a different last name to Ryan. She went by Barbara Waite, and she has just been described as the most amazing person ever. She had a quick wit. She loved making people laugh. She was just always up for a good time. She was pretty much the exact opposite of Ryan's dad. She was selfless, and she provided unconditional love to her children. She loved being a mother. She had a special connection to both of her children. She loved spending time with them. They would always be outside, biking and hiking, cross-country skiing. It is also said that she loved animals. She had many pets, as well as being an incredible carer for her elderly mother. So overall, Barbara is just like a great person, great mother, great daughter to her mother, loved animals, so supportive, and Ryan just had the best relationship with his mom. Ryan also had a really good relationship with his older sister, Lisa. So this family, the three of them, they are really tight. So we get to a very significant part of today's case because Ryan started to discover that he had a passion, and he was incredibly passionate about acting. Ryan developed an interest in acting from a very young age. He would put on performances in front of his mom and his sister. And when Ryan was around 6 years old, Barbara could tell that her son was incredibly serious and passionate about acting. So she started taking her son to all of these auditions because that's what he wanted. And by the time Ryan was only 8 years old, he started appearing in television commercials, which was a pretty big deal. That is very competitive. But then by the time he gets to 9 years old, his acting career started to develop even further than this because he landed his first major role in a movie called The Secret of the Nutcracker. Now, as the name suggests, this was a Christmas movie. It was one of those very cheesy TV movies, but that didn't matter. It was still a really big part for Ryan. It was still his first major part, and you can actually see some clips of Ryan online in this movie, and he looks so young. I mean, he's 9 years old.
May you have the happiest Christmas and New Year.
He's not our uncle. Drop it, he's got gifts.
But this was almost like the turning point. From landing this role in The Secret of the Nutcracker, more and more opportunities just started to come in for Ryan. Over the next year or so, Ryan goes on to star in 8 different roles in TV and movies. And they were only small roles, however, that's pretty impressive. He also landed himself a pretty big part in the TV show Supernatural. I know, that is a very, very big deal. This is a very, very popular TV series. I've actually only watched a couple of episodes myself. It's one of those TV shows that I really want to actually watch, but I just never get around to it because it's such a big commitment because there are so many series. But I know that a lot of you have probably watched Supernatural and you probably love it. Well, Ryan was actually in Supernatural, and he plays a pretty memorable character called Todd, who was a young child with superhuman strength, and he uses his powers to get revenge on his bullies, which actually sounds very similar to Ryan's background. I mean, he was bullied. So Ryan was probably in his element playing this role, and Ryan also delivered the iconic line of "Kneel before Todd" after flipping over a car. And you can see this clip on YouTube. If you are a big fan of Supernatural, is that like one of the most iconic scenes? You'll have to let me know. Do you remember it? But that's a pretty big deal to get that role on Supernatural, to be that kid that plays that role. But then after landing his role on Supernatural, he makes his biggest breakthrough yet, because Ryan landed himself a part in a major Hollywood movie. And this was a movie called The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Hopefully that is how you pronounce it. And some of you may have seen this movie because the casting of this movie has some A-list Hollywood actors in it. Are you ready for this? The actors in this film are Johnny Depp, Colin Farrell, Heath Ledger, Jude Law, and even a young Andrew Garfield. I think it was one of Andrew Garfield's first major roles. I've never seen the movie myself. I've never even heard of the movie, but I'm sure some of you have seen it because those are big actors. But Ryan plays the character called Little Anton, and Andrew Garfield's character is actually called Anton. So I can assume without watching the movie that Ryan plays a younger version of Andrew Garfield's character. And this is huge. I don't know how big his part was in this movie, but to land this role with such major big actors is absolutely huge. And normally when we do cases like this, when people are actors and stuff, they don't normally star in that much and they big themselves up, but they haven't actually really done anything. But this is different. Yes, all of these roles are small, but he is building his portfolio. He is getting himself in the right rooms with the right people. He's getting these roles and he's on the right trajectory to be around A-list actors such as Heath Ledger. The amount of things that he could have learned from them, possibly, I don't know. That would have been the most incredible experience for an aspiring actor. And this only spurred Ryan on more. He clearly felt like he could make it, like he could actually become a huge actor. And his mom, Barbara, was there the entire time by his side, being his biggest supporter, encouraging him to follow his dreams. I cannot emphasize just how much Barbara supported her son. Like, she really was so supportive, his biggest cheerleader, but looked out for him at the same time, because obviously child actors, that industry, you have to be careful. Barbara would drive Ryan all over Canada, all over the US, just to make auditions or to get to wherever he was to sets and stuff. Then we get to 2010. Ryan is now aged 11 and Ryan lands a role in the movie The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And following this, Ryan started to receive a lot of critical acclaim, had several award nominations, won Best Male Actor at the Vancouver Short Film Awards, which is huge. Also in 2011, Ryan landed a role in the movie Marley and Me, The Puppy Years. I just want to point out that this is not the original Marley and Me, it is the sequel movie. It went straight to video, it never went to theatres, but that is still a big deal to get a role in that movie. In 2012, Ryan is now aged 13. He actually lands the lead role in a pretty major movie called Becoming Redwood. Now, this was a huge deal because this movie was going to go into theaters. So this was not a TV movie or straight to video situation. Oh no, this was going into theaters, into the cinema. And if you go on YouTube and look up this movie, Becoming Redwood, you can see a lot of behind the scenes footage from this movie, a lot of behind the scene footage with Ryan himself, and he's interacting a lot with the director of the movie, and it just looks like he's having a load of fun on this film set. It looks like he's really in his element. It looks like he's just like really happy because he feels like, oh my God, I've got the lead role in a movie. I cannot stress how much of a big deal that would have been for him.
Hi, I'm Ryan Grantham, and I'm playing the role of Redwood. Redwood is a 11-year-old boy, and he's determined, and he'll stop at almost nothing to get what he wants. If I could go back to the 70s, I think it'd be because of the fashion. Just because, look at these. How awesome are these pants? You will not find these today. We had to have these handmade. Like, come on. That's pretty awesome.
So right now, Ryan really is in his element. I mean, things are going so well for him. He's working as a pretty significant child actor. He's getting lead roles now. All of his dreams were coming true. However, unfortunately, things would not stay like that for very long. And this is when this case takes a pretty significant downward turn. Because after getting his role in Becoming Redwood, this is when Ryan's acting career really dried up. And you can see this on his IMDb page. He continues to get a few small odd roles in kind of like TV movies, especially like the Christmas movies, but they are a lot less frequent from this moment going forward. And my only guess here is that Ryan has obviously reached a certain age now. He's obviously become a teenager, and there's just less demand for teenagers in these roles in TV shows and movies. They want children. So casting directors are not as interested in Ryan as maybe they once were. And this can happen to a lot of child actors. This is not unique to Ryan. It's a very, very competitive industry, and it can be very difficult for them to deal with, because one moment they're getting all of these roles, maybe even major lead roles, and then all of a sudden, pretty much overnight, they get nothing. And given how young they are, they must really struggle to deal with this. And Ryan did struggle to deal with this, because we know that he has a whole host of mental health issues. Well, when he was focusing on acting, when all of that was going great, his mental health actually did improve. However, now it takes a nosedive again. He now struggles with depression, and this is linked to the fact that he feels like his acting career is not successful anymore. His social anxiety also came back in a really bad way. He starts to struggle to communicate and interact with people. He then started smoking a lot of marijuana to try and escape from all of this. He became road dependent, and he became a habitual user. He was also having a lot of negative thoughts about himself. He again started to feel inadequate, that he wasn't good enough, that he was being rejected for roles. He was placing a lot of his self-worth on whether he was getting acting roles or not. And obviously, because he was no longer getting roles, he just had a really negative view of himself. He again felt like a social outcast, that he wasn't good enough for anything. The suicidal thoughts came back. And on top of this, Ryan also started to struggle with his sexuality. He had a very difficult time figuring out where his sexual interests were, and just overall, he's just struggling. And then by the time we get to 2016, Ryan is now 18 years old. He graduates from high school, and he then goes on to get a place at the Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. And this is actually when things start to pick up for him again. He starts to land a few smaller roles, again in TV series, TV movies, playing an older teenager. He actually gets a lead role in a Canadian film called Considering Love and Other Magic, which seems to be like a teenage rom-com where Ryan actually plays a timid ghost that cannot leave the house.
I can't leave the house. It's not possible. Go hide.
What's wrong with you?
I'm an illusion. A work of fiction. Veronica invented me on her typewriter. I know he likes you. Have you kissed him?
Bridget says you're in love with me.
She's not coming back.
And then shortly afterwards, Ryan lands a role in what appears to be his now most famous role that he has ever played in the TV series Riverdale. And again, very popular TV show. I am sure so many of you have seen it. I actually have watched Riverdale. I can't remember though. I think I've only watched the first series and maybe a little bit into series 2, but I can't quite remember when I stopped. And I always think of Riverdale as a Netflix show because it's only available in the UK on Netflix. And in the UK, it actually has like the little Netflix logo at the top as if it's a Netflix original. And I do actually see Ryan referred to sometimes as the Netflix actor from Riverdale, but Riverdale is not actually a Netflix show. In the US, it's a CW show. So yeah, that's kind of confusing. But regardless, when Ryan landed this role, he was still in university. He went for an audition for Riverdale and he actually got the part. And again, it was only a small part. It wasn't a major lead role or anything like that. He actually landed a part in season 4 in episode 1. But even though it was only a small part that he landed, he actually played a pretty significant character, because season 4 episode 1 was entirely dedicated to one of the characters who had died on the show. And the character that died in the show was Fred Andrews, who was the dad of one of the main actors, Archie. And Fred Andrews was played by an actor called Luke Perry, and Luke Perry actually died suddenly in real life. He died very tragically in the middle of filming. He was only 52 years old. It was from a stroke. He was such a popular actor and character on the show. He was loved by a lot of the fans of Riverdale. He was obviously loved by the cast, and they dedicated the whole episode to his character, Fred Andrews. They wanted to write his character out in a very touching way. And Fred Andrews, the character, actually was killed because of a car accident on the show. And Ryan Grantham was cast as the person that killed Fred Andrews with his car. So even though it was a small part, it was actually kind of a key character that he was playing. And there is an incredibly emotional scene with Archie, who is the son of the character Fred Andrews. And Ryan is in that scene.
Yeah, you're right. He will get justice. I promise you.
Archie. Fred Andrews. Well, wait, that's the man you killed. Tell me, I swear. Kill you!
Stop! He didn't do it. He didn't do anything wrong. He told the police he did it. To protect me, but it wasn't him. Okay, it was me. It was my fault. I took the car when I wasn't supposed to. I don't even have my license. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And it's a pretty powerful, impactful scene. It's only around 30 seconds to a minute, and that was it. Ryan was just in that scene and never again. He was never in the show again. It was such a small role. But following this small part in Riverdale, Ryan was hopeful again that his acting career was going to take off again. I mean, being able to put down on your CV that you have been in Riverdale, that's a pretty huge thing. So he keeps going to auditions, keeps going after all sorts of different roles, but again, he never gets anything. He keeps getting rejected. At this point, he was still at university. He was just really trying to make something of his life. He was trying his hardest to stay positive, but he was just struggling to keep it all together. He turned back to using cannabis again to cope. This was happening more and more often, and it did become a full-blown addiction for him. His mom found out about his addiction, and again, she was just so supportive. She just wanted to help her son. She did try her hardest to break her son's addiction. He did go to rehab a couple of times, but every single time he left rehab, he would just relapse again. Ryan is now struggling even more with his mental health. He felt incredibly isolated, paranoid. He was so anxious. This also led him to stop socializing with people in university. He actually moved out of the residency at the university and moved back home to live with his mom. He then started to skip classes, his grades started to fall, and he was just really struggling to keep up with university and everything that was required of him. But he never told his mom about this. He never turned to his mom for help. He never told his mom that he was struggling with his studies because he didn't want her to be disappointed in him. He felt ashamed that he just kept failing. He felt like he was failing acting, now he was failing university, and he just wanted his mom to be proud of him. At this point as well, Ryan had also completely cut off his dad. He now had zero relationship with his dad, and this was still affecting him. Also, on top of this, just to make everything a million times worse, Ryan's mom, Barbara, was diagnosed with cancer, and she had to undergo treatment for this. She was not in good health. She was battling her cancer. She was incredibly strong, brave, determined to get over it. She was determined to make a full recovery, but this was having an impact on Ryan as well. And tragically, things are about to get even worse from here. And this is where we now get to Ryan's main downfall. And at this point, it is now the end of 2019. Ryan is now 21 years old. He's in his 4th year of studies at the university, and this is where he enters a very dark place. He is now struggling with major depression, but he was very good at hiding this, even from his mom. She could tell that things weren't quite right with her son, but she didn't realize how bad they were. Ryan also started thinking about taking his own life again. He started really considering all of the various ways that he could do this. This is also when Ryan started to find himself in some very dark places on the internet. He now became incredibly fascinated by violence. Ryan started started watching very concerning material on the dark web. And I mean truly disturbing content. He was watching murder videos, rape videos, torture videos, car accidents, people that were literally dying on video. He was watching dark stuff. He also became fascinated with weapons around this time as well, especially guns. He started to go to gun clubs in Canada, began purchasing multiple weapons, including 2 rifles and a shotgun. He also became very fascinated with serial killers and mass murderers. And that was not from an educational point of view. He became obsessed with serial killers and mass murderers in particular because he related to them. He felt like they were social outcasts and he felt like he himself was a social outcast. Ryan also became obsessed with the Joker film that came out in 2019 starring Joaquin Phoenix. He became fixated on the Joker character. And if you've watched that film or if you're at least familiar with the Joker character, you'll know that the Joker, he feels like an outcast as well. Like he is ostracized from society. He's seen as different, how he struggles with his mental health. And Ryan really related to the Joker, especially in the 2019 film. He really related to the mental health struggles that Joker was going through. And in the 2019 film of the Joker dealt with his mental health issues and all of the stuff that he was going through by murdering somebody on TV. So Ryan kept diving into this world. He started really obsessing over the Joker, over serial killers, mass murderers, and he started to fantasize about possibly carrying out something similar himself. He started to believe that acting out violently in some kind of way could bring an end to his mental health problems. He violently fantasized about taking somebody else's life. Like he literally would go into his own little world. He would daydream about all the various ways that he could take someone's life. And I assume that he was very inspired by all of the dark content that he was viewing on the dark web. He had a plethora of ideas on how to take someone's life. He also continued to watch all of that dark content online. He was becoming an addiction at this point, him viewing all of that material online. And then by the time March 2020 arrives, the pandemic has arrived, the world has gone into lockdown. So Ryan is now facing even more isolation than he was before. And it did become too much for him. And he decided that all of his fantasies, he no longer wanted them to just be fantasies. He wanted them to turn into a reality. And towards the end of March of 2020, Ryan starts making very concerning entries into his journal. He expressed that he wanted to go on a mass killing spree. In his entries, he was very much inspired by the Joker. And Ryan decided that he wanted to make as much impact as possible. He would be famous or infamous. He wanted the news to be talking about him. He wanted to be on the front cover of newspapers. He wanted everyone to remember his name. So he started thinking, how am I going to do that? What is going to guarantee that everyone knows my name? Well, he decided that he wanted to assassinate Canada's current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Ryan believed that if he did this, no one in history would ever forget his name. So Ryan actually started to make plans to assassinate Justin Trudeau. He started gathering guns together. He started researching on how to make his own weapons, such as Molotov cocktails. But then afterwards, Ryan decided that he also needed to do something else before he could carry out his plans on assassinating the Canadian Prime Minister. Ryan decided in order for him to do this, he must also murder his own mother. Ryan decided that if he was going to become this infamous killer, he didn't want his mom around to see it. He didn't want her to feel the shame or the heartbreak or devastation that her son had turned into a killer. And the only way around this, he decided, was that he had to take her life first, which is truly heartbreaking because his mom, Barbara, she had supported him, loved him his whole life, his biggest cheerleader. She poured her heart and her soul into raising him. She had a special connection with him. And now Ryan wanted to repay her by murdering her. And these are sadly not just thoughts in Ryan's head, because now he started to think about all of the ways that he could kill his mom, about all of the different methods that he could use, about how he could shoot her. Ryan even made videos of himself with his GoPro camera going around his house with a rifle, practicing how he would carry out the shooting of his own mom. He was doing practice runs on how he was going to murder his mom. I just don't know how he could do that. His mom is literally the best mom in the world. She did everything for him. How can he literally even entertain the idea of murdering her? How can he go through with these practice runs? And these videos that he made on his GoPro camera would later be played in court. We do not have them, but they were later played in court and they are so chilling. The description of these videos alone is enough to break your heart. You don't even need to see them. And very sadly, this is now when we get to the devastating events of today's case. Because we now get to the evening of the 31st of March 2020. This is still very early on in the pandemic. It's actually crazy how quickly the events of today's case take place, considering we are literally at the beginning of lockdown, and that is when he really started to struggle. Things have escalated very, very quickly. And on this evening, it was just Ryan and his mom, Barbara, at home. By this point, his older sister, Lisa, had moved out of the house, and they were currently sat at home together playing board games, which is something that they did all of the time. And Barbara thought that they were having a nice evening. But then at around 6:45 p.m. that evening, Ryan exited the living room. Ryan went upstairs and he started rummaging around in his bedroom. And this is sadly when he put his deadly plan into action. Because Ryan first picks up his .22 caliber rifle from inside of his bedroom. He carries it out with him and he starts heading downstairs towards where his mom is. But as he was halfway down the stairs, Ryan could hear that his mom had sat down at her piano and she was playing the piano. And this is something that Ryan always enjoyed. He loved listening to his mom play on her piano. She was always on that piano. She was always performing songs for Ryan. And on this night, he was armed with a rifle. He was walking down the stairs and his mom had just sat down. She was just playing the piano and Ryan stopped in his tracks. He actually sat on the stairs and just started listening to his mom play piano. It is incredibly eerie. He's just sat there with a gun in his lap, just listening to his mom play piano. And Ryan could also see his mom from where he was sat on the stairs. He could see the back of her head. She couldn't see him, so she didn't know that he was there. So she didn't see that he was sat there with a gun, but Ryan could see his mom. And Barbara was just in her own little world playing on her piano. And for the next 10 to 15 minutes, Ryan just sat there watching and listening to his mom play. And he was actually debating in his head, should he kill her? Should he not? Should he kill her? Should he not? And I just don't know how he could sit there for that long debating on whether to kill his mom, who has only ever loved him and cared for him and supported him. And tragically, after those 15 minutes had passed, Ryan decided that he was going to do it. He was going to murder his mom. So he stood up. He pointed his rifle at the back of his mom's head, removed the safety, closed his eyes, and pulled the trigger. And Ryan fired just one shot, and it hit his mom in the back of her head as she was sat there playing piano. She had no idea what had happened. It happened so quickly. And tragically, his mom, Barbara, she fell from her chair, dropped to the floor. Blood was seeping from her wound, and sadly the injury proved fatal. And this is the moment when 64-year-old Barbara White passed away. And I just can't believe that Ryan actually went through with it. Like, how did he not change his mind, especially as she was playing piano, something that he only had fond memories of? I think the only saving grace here is that Barbara never actually saw what her son did, because I just know that would have broken her completely. And I just really wish that Ryan had never done it in the first place, obviously. The fact that he killed her in such a cold-blooded manner, the fact that he debated it as well, just makes it so much worse. He could have changed his mind. 15 minutes is an incredibly long time to be sat there debating on whether you're going to kill somebody with a gun in your lap. So then after he has murdered his mom, what does Ryan go and do next? Well, he grabs his GoPro camera and he starts filming himself. Again, I can only assume this adds to his whole thing that he wants to be infamous, he wants to be remembered. So now he starts filming everything. He's vlogging himself, he's vlogging everything. He starts going round the house, filming everything, narrating about what he has just done. He actually also films his mom's body on the floor. He points the camera at his mom's body and he describes how he murdered her. And his voice on these videos, again, the public do not have access to these videos. They were just played out in court. But it is reported that his voice in these videos is just so cold, so emotionless. However, he also seems to be shaking at the same time, and psychologists have later said that this could be a sign of him mentally unraveling, that he physically just could not process what he has just done. He then walks back to his bedroom, he looks in the mirror, still filming himself, so he's like filming himself in the mirror, and he says in a panicked voice, "I just killed my mom. I just killed my mom. I shot the only person who loved me in the back of the head." He also finishes by saying to himself, "You thought you were so tough." And I don't quite know what he means by that. Like, I don't know if he is giving himself a compliment or is he insulting himself? It's not quite clear. And then afterwards he ends the recording, and this is when he starts to put in place the second part of his despicable plan into action. Because at 7:15 p.m, literally just moments after he murdered his mom, this is when Ryan gets into the car, he drives to the nearest gas station, fills up a big canister, returns home, and now he starts making a ton of Molotov cocktails. And he was doing this all evening, making these Molotov cocktails. He was binge watching Netflix at the same time, and he was doing this for 10 hours straight. He was smoking marijuana the whole time, and his mom's body literally lay just 10 feet away from him. He did fall asleep at some point. So the next morning he woke up, had breakfast like it was just any normal day. And things like that always just baffle me. It's like, how can you just get up and have breakfast when you've just murdered your mom and her body is on the floor next to you? So after his breakfast, this is when he carried out some sort of ritual on his mom's body. It's like he was saying goodbye to his mom's body. He first hung rosary beads on the piano so that they would dangle over his mom's body. He lit some candles. He read from a prayer book. He said a few Hail Marys before covering his mom's body with a white sheet. Then after he did this, he went outside. He tested one of his Molotov cocktails to see if it would work, which it did. And then he loaded up his car. He loaded up his car with weapons, which was 2 rifles, a shotgun, a load of Molotov cocktails, some survival gear, and then he made a playlist for the drive. Of course, he had to have the playlist. And then he went on his journey to murder the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. But he also wanted to carry out a deadly mass killing spree at the same time. So Ryan is now on the road and his destination is the Prime Minister's home. However, there was one problem because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau lived in Ottawa and Ryan lived near Vancouver. So to get near the Prime Minister's home, it was going to be about a 50-hour drive. And I'm like, what? 50 whole hours? 50 hours. That just baffles me. Canada is so big. If I was to drive 50 hours, I would end up in like Turkey. Oh my God, 50 hours, 50 hours. So anyway, Ryan sets off on this incredibly long car journey. He's got his playlist going. He is smoking cannabis the whole time. He's fully intending on carrying out his plan at this moment. But then after only driving 3 hours, he reaches the town of Hope and he has a change of mind. And I'm like, wow, he only drove 3 hours out of 50. And we don't know why he had a change of mind. Was he fed up with driving? Or did he just realize that the possibility of him murdering the Prime Minister was pretty much impossible? Was he scared that he would fail? Did he actually just come to his senses? We don't know. So Ryan turns his car around and starts heading back to Vancouver. But this is sadly when he starts to come up with a new plan instead, because Ryan thought to himself, he has just murdered his mom. He still wanted to carry out a mass murder in some capacity. Otherwise, his mom would have died for nothing. So he felt like he had to do something. So this is when he started to go through various different options in his head. He first contemplated driving to the famous Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver, where he would stop his car, block the traffic, start throwing Molotov cocktails and shooting as many people as possible. He also considered going to his university campus to carry out a mass shooting there, causing as much fear and terror as possible. And what is actually scary is that he drove to his university. He pulled up his car on campus and he just sat there in the car. He was still smoking a load of marijuana and he just sat there contemplating his plan on mass murder. In the end though, thankfully, he backed out, and this is when he decided that he was going to take his own life. So Ryan sat there in his car. He pointed his gun at himself. He was seriously thinking about taking his own life, but he soon realized that he couldn't do this either. And unbelievably, this part may shock you because not many cases end like this, but Ryan started his engine, got directions to the nearest police station, drove himself there, and handed himself in. And yeah, it's pretty shocking because not many cases end like that. He went straight to the police and made a full confession. He told them everything that he had done. Meanwhile, whilst all of this is going on, back at the mother's home, Lisa, the daughter and Ryan's sister, decided to pay her mom a visit. And when she got there, she let herself in with her own key. She went to check on her mom and she came across the most awful scene because she discovered her mom's body. It was covered in a white sheet. There was blood everywhere. Rosary beads were hanging from the piano. Candles were still burning around her. Lisa immediately called the police and they arrived at the crime scene. They did a full investigation. They came across Ryan's GoPro camera, so they saw the videos of him confessing on video to what he had done. And along with his confession at the police station, this is when Ryan was arrested and charged with murder. So Ryan was held in custody and this is when the legal proceedings started. His defense team did try to plead the defense of insanity, given all of his mental health issues that Ryan was going through at the time. However, after being evaluated by multiple psychiatrists, Ryan was found to be sane of mind. It was accepted that yes, he did have his mental health struggles, but at the time of the murder, he was sane of mind. He knew the difference between right and wrong. So he is completely responsible for his actions. And Ryan Grantham did plead guilty to murder, so he avoided going to trial. And because of this, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 14 years, which is definitely very concerning. That means that he could possibly get out of prison at the age of 37, which is still so incredibly young, but it is concerning that he could be released, especially considering that he was contemplating mass murder. So he is a danger, possibly to the wider public, not just his mom, for example. This was not a domestic murder. He only murdered his mom because he wanted to commit mass murder and murder the Prime Minister. So that is definitely concerning that he could be out in 14 years, but given the scale of his crimes or what he wanted to do, it is possible that he will be denied parole, but who knows? And in the aftermath of this case, a lot of news articles, a lot of people are referring to him as the Riverdale actor because that does seem to be his most famous role. And the actress Lily Reinhart, who plays Betty on the show of Riverdale, tweeted, "We do not claim him, thank you." And now I want to end today's video focusing on the victim of today's case. Barbara Waite was described as an incredibly caring, beautiful and selfless person. She had a quick wit, loved to have fun, loved being outdoors in nature, but most of all, she loved her children, would do anything to support and protect them, and she was taken by one of the people who was supposed to love her the most. She was taken far too soon. She was just 64 years old. And my heart really goes out to Barbara's family, especially her daughter Lisa, who made the horrific discovery of her mom's body. She went on to struggle with PTSD and has struggled to cope with the horrific loss of her mom. And she even ended up losing her job as a lawyer because of this, which breaks my heart. And I just hope that she's doing okay. My heart really does go out to her and I just wish her all the best. So that brings us to the end of today's case. As always, let me know your thoughts, theories and opinions. And don't forget to leave me your case suggestions in the comments down below because I always want to know what you want to hear next. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye.